What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com, host of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Welcome to Lefty Cards right here on the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, discussing the latest trends, best practices, and insider tips on sports card investing. This episode is brought to you by NoOffSeason.com, the number one place to make money flipping sports cards. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com. And now, everybody, it's time for Lefty Cards.
I have messed up. Welcome to Lefty Cards. But I wanted to tell you guys that sincerely, we may have dropped the ball. And what I mean by this is coming very soon. But this is another great episode of Lefty Cards. You're here with me, Lefty McKee. We're going to be analyzing some card stuff. And we're going to talk about two big quarterbacks, one big call-up, and one of the biggest wins I've ever made in the sports card realm. So before we go any further, I wanted to give a shout out to NoOffSeason.com, place where you can get the most updated sports card information to help you win your portfolio. The Sports Card Strategy Show happens every week. We have Raw to Grade, we have Graded to Grade, we have the Overflow Show if you're a premium member, which you should be because it's making people tons of money to follow the formula and how to win at sports cards. But I sincerely apologize for the advice I gave on one particular player. Bryce Young looked horrific on Sunday. Like, he literally could not do a thing. First snap of the year, I'm ready to watch. I'm looking at it. I'm like, yes, Bryce Young, we've been talking so much about you. I even drafted the rookie tight end as a low-end flex play. I'm like, yes, we should be able to do this. Bryce Young, here, comeback season starts right now. And immediately, first pick, or first pass of the game, first pick of the game. I was like, are you serious? Okay, all right. Well, maybe he's going to come back. Maybe he's going to roll into a little more comfort after a while. No. Unfortunately, fam, it's not looking good. Bryce Young, again, is looking like he is the wrong pick for the Panthers. Now, I am going to dive in a little bit on some statistics and some things. And if you're watching with us at NoOffSeason.com, you'll be able, or if you're watching with us at YouTube TV, or if you are on Twitch with us right now, then you're going to see these live. But I'm going to try to explain these the best I can for those of you that are listening online. So Bryce Young yesterday, this was his line. 13 for 30. That's a 43.3% accuracy rate, by the way, for 161 yards, which is, okay, but I bet a bunch of that was during a couple of chunk plays, for 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs, 4 carries for 12 yards, and a rushing touchdown, for a overall fantasy point score of 9.64 points, largely because of the touchdown from the rush. Now, if we look at his advanced statistics out of this, like if we go into the full, broader, complete stats, I know it's only one game. And is this a gross overreaction? Maybe. But here's where I'm going to go with this. His completion percentage was 43.3% against the New Orleans Saints, a team that we would have thought would have been a team that was easy to get past potentially for this Carolina Panthers team. A team that we thought was going to be a team that was going to be worth Bryce potentially doing better than in the division. He comes in at 43.3% completion percentage, has an overall quarterback rating of 32.8, which is horrible. And when I mean horrible, his career quarterback rating to this point is 71.5. So he's half the quarterback that he has been previously. And we already know Bryce Young has been a bad quarterback. And we were betting on a trend to go differently than this. He throws a pair of interceptions after being drummed by the Saints this last week. And his quarterback rating efficiency or QBR, adjusted QBR, is 10.7 on the year. So, mind you, can it get better? Yes. But this stat line right here is bad. And it's worse than his already bad year last year. The one silver lining here is he had one rushing touchdown yesterday. He had 0 on the season last year. So maybe he's going to be turning the tides on a more of a running threat. But I don't think that, don't get used to that. So his fantasy season was saved, and likely we talk about this from a Cards perspective. The fantasy season largely drives some of the buyers because unlike any other sport that we have right now, the fantasy really determines the buyer ownership because when your guy balls in fantasy, you're going to want another asset of his. Well, Bryce Young this whole offseason was a guy that we thought was a buy low candidate, and out of the gate, it looks bad. Now, here's what I'll say about this before I jump into more statistical valuation of Bryce Young. Will Levis also looked bad. There was 2 quarterbacks this Sunday. Well, not only 2 quarterbacks. There was actually a fair amount of quarterbacks that did not live up to their expectations. And we're going to talk about another one here in a minute. But we spoke very highly this offseason about acquiring Bryce Young cards. So if you did, listen up close. His stats are horrible after week 1 and arguably one of the easiest tests they'll have all season. The end does not seem in sight for him. The next couple of games will be against the Chargers, the Raiders, which have a stout defense, Cincinnati, which looked rough, Chicago, which is Atlanta, and then you got Washington, Denver, so they don't have the powerhouse teams at least until week 15 and 12 and 15. 12 on is looking brutal for them. But if they can get through a couple of these little mishaps, and then Bryce Young can have a better season, there is a silver lining that the rest of his season looks a little bit okay until the bye week. After the bye week, it looks hard. After the bye week, they have the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay again, and then Atlanta, week 18. So after the bye is going to be an absolute do not sell. Sell before then. I'm going to probably look to sell around the New York Giants game unless it's just horrific. So his prices were falling coming into Sunday. And if we look at the auctions ending today, they're not really looking any better. So if we look, I'm going to pull up the stat on it for the guys, for those of you that are watching. The last 30 days, we have a pretty consistent sell marker for his silver PSA 10. Now, over the last week, they've been down. Over the last week, it's down 6.5%. And over the last 90 days, it's still down 6%. So we definitely haven't seen a rise in anything Bryce Young per se. And these are all from sales that ended yesterday. And so I got curious. I said, well, let's look at some sales that are potentially ending today or tomorrow night. And there are some sales on eBay for live auctions that are ending. Like this one is $153. It ends in 2 hours and 4 minutes. So if it ends at around 180, that's going to take this price marker way down. So there hasn't been one that sold that low since 188 was in June 22nd. I don't think it's going to get to 188. I think it may be the all-time low in the last 90 days is going to be that sale. So this card is definitely getting cheaper. And then if you look at a little bit beyond that, if you look at this is the silver, guys. The base is probably dirt cheap right now on auction. But the thing I wanted to focus on here is we made a recommendation, and now that didn't go well right out of the gate. We're going to have to hold and hope for better days, but we hope you didn't mortgage the farm on Bryce Young. Or if you did, maybe you sold him during preseason on the hype of what Carolina Panthers could come up with. Now, sharps are going to say that there might be a buy low opportunity. I don't want to put more risk in my portfolio, and I don't want to put more risk into Bryce Young right now. And so, although this might be an opportunity for him, a little blip on the radar, I just don't see it. I thought he was going to come right out of the gate and be fine. He just wasn't. So let's move on to our second quarterback. Are we also then worried about Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow's performance yesterday wasn't really that good either. The Bengals lost to a team that they definitely shouldn't have. And we were wondering, is Joe Burrow's attention, is it all going to be overhyped? Because people love to love Joe Burrow. But there's been this overarching stigma of injury. Well, now if there's an overarching thing stemming from him not playing well, now I can see his prices falling. But when we actually look at the data, when we look at the same data, we're going to compare the exact same data that we looked at for Bryce Young. Yesterday, he had a quarterback rating of 86, so still fairly okay. He didn't have any runs, or he didn't have any long runs, which is a little bit different than he normally has. He usually has something. He had 4 carries for 15 yards. But his completion percentage was still 72%, which is actually above his completion percentage on his career. He had 164 yards, which is fine. He had 50. I mean, it definitely wasn't good, but it's not terrible. It's about the same as Bryce Young, but his completion percentage is way better. But he didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but he didn't throw any interceptions. It just looks like the Bengals offense wasn't necessarily on the same page. And you would expect that with Jamar Chase not practicing before the season and only having a couple under his belt, and another top receiver wasn't there with him. And he has a new running back this year. It's a lot of new for Joe Burrow, but the stat line doesn't look as bad as the score did. And that's why I think Joe Burrow is not the same candidate for freak out like we have with Bryce Young. Now, if we look at Joe Burrow's market share, the silver, I have this on the screen here. I have the PSA 10 silver prism and I have the PSA 10 base prism, because his silver prisms are way, way higher than Bryce Young's. So we're going to look at both of them real quick. And he has definitely more pedigree and more background for being a justified quarterback for sure than Bryce Young. So it's not like comparing apples to apples, but it is like comparing apples to oranges. And I won't make the orange pun there that I could have about Joe Burrow being, I guess I just made it anyway. So his PSA 10 over the last 90 days is in fact down to 1.8. 1.8K when a couple of months ago it was at 2.1K. So it is down $400 currently, and maybe that's because of yesterday's performance, but I doubt it. Or actually, that's not the case, because the last market mover sale from a silver prism was last week before the game even happened. So when you look at the eBay sales right now of the PSA 10, well, we'll do that in a second. So let me hide this for a second, just because we're going to use the base, for instance. We do see the base card is down 18% in the last 90 days. And over the last 7 days, it's down 19%. But that's hovering around $100. And when you look at the ones that are for sale right now on auction, there's a sale of a base card that's at $93 right now with 1 day and 6 hours left. You would imagine that $97 and the $93, you can imagine that there's a $5 difference between that and the last sold that is going to go up over the next day and 6 hours left. I'm not worried about Joe Burrow's market. I think it's going to be fine. For those of you that are invested in him, his stats are actually pretty they weren't horrendous. So if you're holding, don't panic. Keep holding. There is life on Joe Shiesty. There is life ahead of us with Joe Burrow. And I do believe in this case, when we look at the base prism, it is going to go up, and that should drive. Now, I also just want to take a minute to say, okay, Paul has talked so much about like the prism silvers and the prisms not being the cards we go after. If you look at the formula, it's other cards. Yes, that is true. But what I want to point out is generally when you're looking at the overall health of a market share, you look at their most popular card. And their most popular card in this instance is the prism. Now, you can make good money and good return on the other cards, but that still does not define the fact that the most popular card in circulation for Joe Burrow and for Bryce Young is that prism or prism silver card, the PSA 10 version of that, because that is the most desirable parallel, and it's going to give us a good reflection of where their overall market case is and their overall market cap is, and where their overall market is going to be from. So now when we look, let's go back to the chart, and we'll bring back the prism silver here for a second. The Prism Silver is the last sold was 1.8K. There actually is one on auction right now with 3 days left. That's at 757. It's also shipping from Canada. I think that's going to end pretty close to where it was. If you've got 4 days left, I would expect this to go up to at least 1.5 and maybe reach that 2K here pretty soon. Now these cards just don't sell very often, and so that when we're looking at the Prism Silvers, this one actually is labeled Prism Silver. It's not. It's a base card, so that's actually a faulty listing, and it's a 0% eBay lister, so it's probably not even real. But if you go down, the first Prism Silver, that's a Prism Silver Black. That's a really cool card, but not his most desirable one. This one right here is the Prism Silver PSA 10, and it's from a trusted seller with over 18,000 sales, and it's $757 right now with 3 days left. So I imagine this card is going to be fine. If you guys have one of these bigger cards and you have one of the Prism Silver cards, this is definitely a highly desirable card, and you would hope that this card ends up being either at or lower or higher than that last sale of 1.8. Hopefully it's around that 2K mark. I would imagine it's probably not going to get to the 2K mark because he did not have a game that blew you out of the gate the first game of the season. But expect Joe Burrow's market, at least for now, to be healthy, and going forward, I don't feel that concerned about his market share. All right, we're going to hit two back-to-back commercials real quick because I have three main segments and I've just burned through two of them, and I did not hit I wanted to hit a commercial between Bryce Young and Joe Burrow, but totally forgot. So we're going to hit a no offseason commercial and then a CGC cards commercial, and then I'll be back with a baseball play that I'm super excited about.
What's up, everyone? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. Why should you subscribe to NoOffSeason.com's premium membership? Do you like the content on this show? Want more? Well, a free 30-day trial membership at NoOffSeason.com gives you a Friday edition of the Sports Card Strategy Show called The Overflow Show. It's a premium podcast for members only every Friday, and you can ask an unlimited amount of questions to build your sports card investment portfolio, and I answer them for you. I put in the work, research, and do the analysis, give you the best possible answer so you can increase your chances of making money flipping sports cards. And if that's not enough reason to sign up for a free 30-day trial today, you get Sports Card School, tons of premium members-only articles, and our new formula-based sports card rankings to help you find the cards with the best ROI to make money in the hobby. Sign up today at NoOffSeason.com. Kendall, are these people ready to start grading their sports cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today.
All right. Thank you, Paul. So we had two back-to-back commercials, and I wanted to get to this as not the main segment of what we're doing, but as a segment that I've got to talk about because there's been enough people asking me about it when we made our take in our flag plant in the ground with there is another pitcher that is investable. I've told you for the last about, month or so that Kumar Rocker is a guy that has turned the page. He's healthy. He's going towards the major league profile. He's dominating in the minor leagues. And this guy was at one point the number one drafted or the number one pitcher in the nation. There's been several times in his career where he has been the number one most desirable asset in the pitching department at several different levels. He was the number one high school player. He was the number one college pitcher. He was behind Jack Leiter for a time, and then Jack kind of surpassed him because Kumar looked like he was dealing with an injury, which he was. And then he goes out, gets drafted by the Mets at 10th overall in 2021, I believe. And they end up not signing. They can't agree, and they realize that his physical didn't come back well. He's going to probably have to have surgery, and instead of paying for it, they just let him go. And then the next year, the Rangers were like, we do see that same thing. We're going to take him third overall, and we're going to wait because this guy is a generational talent potentially once he's healthy. So they paid for the rehab and they paid for all of the surgery and all this kind of stuff. They waited and waited. And then Kumar, now healthy, is destroying the minor leagues. He has an outrageous number of strikeouts to inning ratio right now. He's not walking people. He's got a nasty slider. He's dominant from the mound. He's got a presence that is intimidating, and he's a guy that is worth a watch. Now, so when we put all those things together, about a year ago, I said there might be. I was talking to Krim at the moment. I was like, there might be some areas where pitchers are investable, and he just kind of laughed. And I said, no, think about it. If there are cheaper buy-in, if we're looking at percentage return, we can still make good percentage return potentially on these pitchers. And I said, I think there's some guys coming that could be worth a small investment. At that day, I was thinking about Paul Skeens and Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. Now, Jack Leiter has not been the pitcher that we thought he was, plus he doesn't have cards really. So, but the other two are definitely still sitting in that echelon of guys that I think are perennially going to be investable, and you're going to see them on tables. Now, we've seen how Paul Skeens has been a rocket ship for his cards. His cards went crazy around July. They've definitely come off now that he's coming back down to earth a little bit, and the Pittsburgh Pirates are not anywhere close to making the playoffs. But I think there is eligibility for Kumar Rocker to do some of the same things. The Rangers are going on an explosive trajectory right now. I think they've won 13 out of their last 16 games. They're like 9.5 games. Last week, they were 9.5 games out of the West. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but there still is the likelihood that could happen. And the last time we've seen that happen for a team that started September 9.5 games back in the wild card spot was the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals, which beat who in the World Series? You guessed it, the Texas Rangers. So the Texas Rangers know what it's like to have an underdog story, and I don't think this team is done beating some people this September. There is a very good likelihood that they are going to have a nice record in September because their September opponents are easy. They have a very good remaining of schedule. Strength is very favorable to the Texas Rangers. And they now have potentially 7 arms coming into this pin. And so I think there will be a lot of media looking towards this because next week Thursday night as of let's see, it's 9/9, so September 9th. Thursday of this week, Kumar Rocker will make his debut for the Texas Rangers. The Friday after the Thursday that he pitches, Jacob deGrom comes back to the mound. So the end of September, the Rangers could have a 7-man rotation. Yes, you heard it. A 7-man rotation of Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, Heaney, Bradford, Leiter, and Kumar Rocker all on the same staff. Now that is very confusing and is not a problem I wish for the Rangers to have going forward. But it is very interesting right now because Kumar Rocker is a guy that is dominant, has been a top 3 overall pick, has been a guy that has had big media beforehand, and is now a guy going forward that could have a very, very nice story that people could get behind. So you're asking, okay, Kendall, well, what does that actually mean for his numbers? Well, let's look at market movers. This is over the last 90 days. We have told you over the last 90 days to get in on Kumar Rocker. If you bought a PSA 10 of Kumar Rocker 90 days ago, you would be up 274% over the last 90 days because 90 days ago, this was selling for around $60, and the last sold is $225. That's just a base chrome of this guy. So people are willing to pay big money for Kumar Rocker. Yes, a pitcher's autograph. Now, let's talk about raw. I think I got one at $25, which was back here around the June timeframe. So the last sold was $55, which is still pretty much a double when you take out the 13%. But the one right before that sold for $80 raw. We were saying to buy in at $25. So if you guys listen to us, you made a nice little turn here over the last 90 days, making a turn for Kumar Rocker. And I think these prices will go up over the next 4 days. Kumar Rocker could be a nice little play for those of you guys that followed us. I will be selling this week, and I know there will be more that will be selling this week because this is what we're going to do with this card. We are selling now. Will there be opportunities for us to buy back into Kumar Rocker this offseason? Yes. Will there be opportunities for Kumar Rocker to be eventually the Rookie of the Year next year? I think so. And he will have a compelling case to make the Rangers rotation next year alongside Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom, which will be very, very compelling as a starter. So Kumar Rocker's day in the sun is starting now, and it is not over, but I am taking my wins now. All right, let's go ahead and jump to another commercial, and then I want to talk about something that might be one of my biggest wins of all time.
Yo, Lefty, we use a lot of data, don't we? Well, I just want everyone to know that they can get the same data we get by signing up at marketmoversapp.com. Sign up at marketmoversapp.com today, but use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20% after a free 14-day trial. That's marketmoversapp.com, promo code NOOFFSEASON.
All right, so let me just break this down for you for a second. This might be one of the biggest wins I've ever made, and a flag plant that I made with Turner and Paul a couple of days ago. Paul has talked about his success, and we have talked about a little bit of my success in this, but I wanted to break down the actual data with you guys. Yes, we again are going to talk about the Caitlin Clark draft night cards, and I know you guys are probably like, oh man, we're spending a whole episode potentially talking about things you've already talked about. We've got Bryce Young, Joe Burrow. We're talking about Kumar Rocker. I think this is really helpful data. So just hang on for a minute as I'm going to be willing to break down exactly how much I spent, exactly how much PSA took, and exactly how much profit I have made on a play that I was sure was going to make me money. And I'll break it down how the three of us played it out. So when we look at our data on this Caitlin Clark play, me, Paul, and Turner all went on 25 draft night cards from the Caitlin Clark. This was the Panini Instant play. It was something that we've talked about many times, and it's not something we always recommend. But in this case, it was a for sure money maker for us. It mirrored that of the Wemby draft night cards that we went on together. So we all got a 25 bundle of them. So that came out to, let me share my screen again. For those of you guys that are watching online, this was the receipt of me ordering them on May 1st, 2024. So at 6 a.m., May 1st, I don't know why, I was up at 6 a.m. and I ordered the Caitlin Clark 2024 Panini Instant WNBA Draft Night Cards, base card 25 pack. That cost me $105.99 after taxes. And I believe that comes out to around, or if I did the math right, it's $4.24 a card. So $4.24 a card raw is what I spent on them coming to me. In the process of them getting delivered, they were delivered almost 2 months later, 6/25/24. These were a very delayed run coming out, and it was something we were quite frustrated with at the time. But immediately, these cards went from being worth $4 to selling for around $10 to $15 to $20. And so we all took a different strategy with this. Turner sold all of his raw instantly because when they were selling, as soon as we got them back, we sold some for around $20. Here's some of my eBay listings for those of you that have watched. There was the one sold for 17, 17, 11, 24, 27, 24, a 3-pack of them that sold for $70, $20, 18, 15, and so on. So I sold 10 of mine raw of these 25 pack. So that came back to just profit alone. I made $81.63 on the 10 raw cards. So I made $81.63 on the 10 raw cards and left 15 back for grading. So I was hoping that I could potentially make enough money for the grading in these raw cards. Didn't quite make that much, but 81 coming off the top from 10 raw cards when I spent $40 on that. I instantly about doubled what I was going for after taxes and fees and all that kind of stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not true. I spent $42.40 on the 10 cards, and all the sales completed on payouts back to me were $124.03. That's a profit margin after fees and everything, and after sales, that's $81.63 net. So the raw cards of the 10, I netted $81 after purchase fees and selling fees and all that from eBay. Now, the 15 cards that I had left, I sent to PSA. That was after I sent them off, it was an extra $304.25. So at this point, I had just under, let's see, I had 105.99 and 304.25. So that's $110.24 that I had ready for grading. So I had $410 ready to be invested into this, knowing that I was going to make more than that. When they came back, I got absolutely murdered and had 110, 11 nines, and 2 8s come back. So, or 12 nines, 2 8s, and 110. That 13, 14. Yeah, that's 15. So out of the 15, I got all nines, 2 8s, and 110. So with the actual data of what I did in the PSA order, this is my PSA order, seeing that I sent them off. Here's what I got: a 9, 9, 9, 9, 10, 9, 9, 9, 9, 8, 8, 8, 9, 9, 9. So that's 12 nines, or 11 nines, 3 8s, and a 10. So what I did with this was I listed them all straight to eBay from the eBay store, or from the PSA. Like, I vaulted, and then I've opened my vault, so now I can send them straight to eBay through the vault. They don't have to come back to me. And I said, you know what? They're all nines. I'm just going to send them straight to eBay and see what happens. Well, I kept 5 of them back. I kept 4 nines back and 1 10. I'll put all the 8s and most of the 9s in on auction and kept everything back. Well, here's how I've done with these. If you look at what I'm showing you online here, I have sold all of my 9s and all of my 8s for a payout of $934.14. That was astronomically higher than I expected. My biggest 9 sold for $162. A 9 of this draft night card sold for $162.50. And after fees, I made $139.75 on that play alone. So I blew my expectations out of the water for what these cards were going to return back to me. And without any other thing, without anything else, after fees and shipping and PSA, which I'll talk about in just a second, I made a $647 profit on a stake in the ground, $100 and $300 investing. So I put in 400, made 600. So little off on the numbers, but I made 600. There was a 40% investment, 60% return essentially. I essentially got back $1,000 and paid 400. So I made $600 on a $400 play. That's incredible over a 4-month return. Now, another thing that I want to say, and you might say, well, Kendall, what happened to the other cards that you kept back? That's where this is getting really spicy, because I kept back a PSA 10 of this card. And as of today, I have put it on auction myself. I was just going to hold the PSA 10 forever. But I think the prices on these cards are way too high right now. Because when I look at this, and when we go to the PSA 10 of this card, it is currently selling for an astronomical number. The one that has 1 hour and 32 minutes left on auction is currently at $882. This might finish over $1,000 for a PSA 10 of a $4 card. That is insane. There is a $4 invested, or you bought it for $4 potentially. You got it graded for $21. It comes back at $10, and you're selling it for almost $1,000. That is insane return. Insane return. So if that happens, mine went on auction today. So if this, over the next 7 days, keeps it up, this card is going to have a massive amount of return for me. It could potentially be more return eligible for me in this one card than the entire lot. So I am planting my flag firmly in the ground saying Caitlin Clark is an absolute sale on all cards. Do not keep anything back right now. Angel Reese just got hurt, and she's out of the Rookie of the Year season. That could happen for Caitlin Clark, and we have incredible numbers of return on her right now. Don't be silly. Take the 1,000x return on something and go laughing to the bank. For those of you that still have Caitlin Clark cards, get out of them. When you spent $25 on a card and it's coming back and selling for potentially $1,000, $975 profit margin. Now, I will say this. Paul has already sold all of his cards, but I also wanted to point this out. Paul got mostly 10s on his cards. And let's say, for instance, that he got all 25 of them back as a 10. If his numbers are the same as his investment, which I know they are, he has $304 invested. Now, if he were to sell all of those right now, let's just say nobody else comes in and shills this bid up anymore and they sell for $882. So $882 times 25 is $22,000 minus a 304.25. He's potentially could have made $21,745 on this play. Ladies and gentlemen, that is unlike anything else in investments. He spent $300 and potentially made $21,000. That's crazy talk. So what I'm saying here, guys, is I'm not saying like this is crazy. It was a miss for me at one point, and is now ending up being financially one of the best investment returns I've ever made. And if I know that Paul sold way earlier, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just doing the math from like had he held on, which I know he didn't. Just for clarity's sake, he didn't make 21,000 on this return. But I'm saying, like, this is the kind of numbers that could happen if we are shrewd with our investing. If you guys followed us in this, I'm sure you did well as well. But I'm about to make an extra $1,000 potentially on top of $600 profit on $400 invested. That is how you make good money in sports cards. And that is why you follow us at nooffseason.com. And that is what you're paying for. For the $280 or whatever it is, $299 a year, you could have followed us in 4 months to potentially have made over $22,000 on one play. Now, this is the biggest win we've ever had. And I'm not saying they're all big wins. But when you are breaking even 60% of the time, losing 1% of the time, and absolutely crushing 31 or 39% of the time, those are the kind of numbers that will be life-changing. And those are the kind of numbers that I want to get behind. And those are the kind of numbers that we're dealing with here at No Off Season. So thanks for being with us today. We're going to have one more commercial. I know the episode was a little shorter today, but I wanted to give the numbers. Oh, the last thing I'll talk about is we have let me hit this commercial and then we'll come back.
Lefty, we say that breaking is not necessarily a sports card strategy, but there's a lot of great things going on Whatnot other than breaking. They now have singles auctions and an improved overall experience on their platform. I want everyone to know that they can get $15 free on Whatnot by joining Whatnot through this URL. Go to whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. That's whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. Lefty, back to you.
Okay, so this is going to be a fairly quick segment, but the PSA selling vault, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. This is something that I walked in fully expecting that it could have bit me in the butt, but I wanted to be able to try what it was going to be like to go graded cards straight to PSA from my vault and then straight into eBay sales. We know that PSA and eBay have partnered now together, and so I wanted to see what this would look like. So I used my Caitlin Clarks as an example. And when I had all of my profits played out, now they give me like a nice little stripe thing here where it has like all my payouts and all where they're coming from. I love that, first off. But this collection with all my payouts, I have made with fees. So if you look at the fees, it says the fees under each sale. So it's sold price and then the fees, and then it gives you your payout on the right. So like your proceeds is the little green number. The number to the left is what the sale actually finished at. And then it shows the fees which PSA took on top of everything else to handle your business. So I found out that under $25 sales, it's a flat rate of $5. I'm assuming it's 25 because I had one sale go at $22.51, and it just took a $5 fee. And then I had a $5.50 sale of a Rondo card way back when I first started it, and it also took $5. So then there was one that sold for, let's see, $32, and it was $5.12. So it was like a little bit prorated after that. So I'm assuming that around maybe around $25, $30 is where the $5 and under fee for processing happens. But the further north it gets, I was able to do some numbers. So I sold almost a grand's worth of cards here. And so I was able to look at what was that going to look like in terms of the percentage off. Out of all these cards, all the Caitlin Clark cards that I sent in, I had a fee payment of $164.42 get collected. Now that plays out to being 17.6% of my profit margins. That may sound like a lot, but I had to do no shipping, no listing, no worrying, no upkeep, no processing, no worries about sales, no worries about connecting with people to get their payments right. None of that. All of it was taken immediately from PSA, immediately to the vault, immediately to eBay, and sold without me having to worry about it at all. And I took a 17% hit when I would take a 13% hit if I had done it myself. Plus, I'd had to pay for shipping. Plus, I would have had to have all of the time and the stress of me trying to figure it out during all my daily life. The extra 4.6% for me is totally worth it. Totally worth the zero stress element of bank account. I get a check a week later for all of my sales at once. The 17.6% return for my PSA sales was exactly what I was hoping for. It's the exact ease that I was wanting to do. And it's the exact way that I wanted to sell cards in bulk. So if you're looking to get cards graded and they're going out in good grade numbers, I think we can confidently sell with PSA and be okay with it. Because the overall sales of anything over $25, $30 looks pretty healthy on a return, especially when they are also taking fees from eBay. So 17.6 return for a full express, I am willing to give them 20% for me not even to have to worry about it at all. So full endorsement on a PSA vault sale opportunity, full endorsement on that going forward. The one thing that's the downside is my eBay account is not building, but I'm okay with that when I have to do zero work on the back end. And that is worth 4% profit for me. Thanks for hanging on with me today, guys, for the 45 minutes of the Lefty Card Show. I eventually want to get back with Krim and with Turner, but now that Turner is in basketball season, he is a collegiate athlete, and full swing ahead for Krim and the card show at Texas Roadshow. These guys have been a little busy. So I might be doing more shows by myself, and this one felt pretty natural. So 45 minutes for just me, I feel like is okay for y'all's ears. Expect more in return, expect more wins, and expect more plays. And if you can break even 60% of the time to win 39% of the time, you're going to make very good money in this profit in this world. So for those of you out there in the internet, thanks for following along at leftycards.com. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you. NoOffSeason.com is a big place for us to succeed together, and I'll see you soon. Peace.
Lefty, great work on today's show. Thanks for supporting Lefty Cards, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com to check out our formula-based sports card rankings to help you make money flipping sports cards. Subscribe to Lefty Cards on YouTube and follow us on socials by visiting leftycards.com.